Joe, I think it's about 6 weeks since we last spoke. And I know we had a chat earlier in the week, like that we didn't record, kind of a background chat, and we decided we're going to title this session Anatomy of a Burnout. But before we get there, bring us up to date. Like what's been happening?
I'm back in Girona, back home, finally. And the last 6 weeks being here, there, and everywhere. So I think the last time we spoke was Vancouver, I think.
Yeah.
I've been to Chicago since. Well, I raced 2 days in Chicago, got pretty badly sick there, flew home, headed to Ireland quickly, saw John there, and then went to the Olympics to watch Maggie race, and then finally back here. So it's been a busy 4 or 6 weeks, but not much racing, unfortunately.
Yeah. Tell us why not much racing.
Oh, I've just been dead. Like, there's no two ways about it. Just absolutely knackered. Like everything. So in Chicago, I had this weird breathing issue where I couldn't really do a deep breath without sneezing or hacking something up internally. And we thought nothing of it, thought it was allergies. Came back, had really weird energy through the day, like couldn't get through a day, couldn't really ride or train. So I got some blood tests and just turns out I'm done. And I think my whole body's into recovering from some sort of virus, and it just 2 weeks after bike and rest is the only remedy, we think.
Yeah. Hence the suggested title of this session. It's kind of like, and when we spoke, you said like I'm just burnt out.
Mm.
And
Well,
not
it's just
not just racing, like racing, traveling. I mean, you do have other work to do as well.
well, it's
Organizing, writing, and
like I almost feel like I want to burn my passport. Like I've used it that many times this year.
yeah,
And then it's like I'm pulling out of races this month, like it's going out of fashion. Probably rightly so. Like I slightly over-egged the back half of the year when I was planning early in the season, but it's just everything I need to get back to like zero and
yeah,
just chill.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's slightly annoying. But I mean, I was flying to Paris 4 or 5 days ago to watch the games, and I pulled up all my race days, all my flight days, and all my drive days, like anything over a 5 hour drive. And I was shocked, like genuinely shocked as how much I've done. And kind of visualizing it like that, I was like, okay, time to take your foot off the gas and chill.
yeah. And I've definitely got some questions around that. Like, that didn't happen to you. Great sneezing action. That the schedule didn't happen to you. I mean, at some point you've booked that in, right? So,
Yeah, I know.
well, I definitely want to explore that. But I just think this modern day craze for kind of optimization and efficiency, do more, better, faster. I mean, the consequence of that, if we don't take time out to like manage our energy, like burnout's the consequence of it, and not just for pro athletes, but for all of us. If you're at work or school or running a home, that kind of modern day, more, better, faster. Brad Stulberg, in his book Practice of Groundedness, he said like when we stop reflecting on the alignment between our activities and our values, then there's a chance we fall prey to this sort of never enough syndrome, and we end up chasing our tails and burn out the consequence of that. So I think it's a great subject to explore because I think it's really relatable. So my question for you is, and I'm thinking of when we met in Lancaster services. My question is, when did you first get when were the first kind of little warning signs that you might have noticed that, yeah, I might have taken too much on?
Uh, that Lancaster day, which was what, 2 weeks before Unbound, I think, was so that mid-May. That was one of the first big kind of realizations. Like I'd known before, because like the Lancaster day, I was driving back from a meeting up your way, and I was like, right, we need to meet in person because I was stressed to the nines. I'd say that was the first major like crisis point, quote unquote. But there was a lot of little points up to that. Even at the end of my first US block when I went to Speed Week
Yeah.
to do the crits, which was a great series in the end. But I was starting to get tired and thought I needed I needed to go home, whereas I'd already had these crits booked in, so I had to go race them. But even after that, I pulled out my first race back in Europe after the US block. I pulled out the tracker, which is in my hometown in Girona, just because I was tired. So there's been little things throughout the year, and I thought I'd mitigated them all, but it turns out I think I just kicked the ball a little bit further down the pitch,
Yeah.
and it caught up with me eventually. Or because, say, looking back, it was an inevitability, and it's not even like I can blame a bastard DS or anything, which I can usually do when I'm on the road. Like, oh, they keep sending me to all these race days. Like, it's only me that's sending me to the race days. But yeah, and what's kind of more annoying is the exact same thing happened this time last year. I remember in Sweden, which is this exact weekend we're talking. I was just absolutely cracked and tired and just burnt out. And I remember saying to you guys last November, like, all right, I know what to do. I won't do it next year. And we're still here. So yeah, I kind of do it to myself, but my brain never stops. So it kind of, I don't know, it's a very bad trait of mine. But going forward, I've told myself in 25, maximum amount of race days is 25 race days maximum. And that's from February to October. And for reference, I'm currently on 34 in what
Yeah.
are we? Mid-August. So
Yeah.
I'm 9, 10 days over my limit, 2 months before the season ends.
Yeah.
So you live and you learn, and gravel race days are so much harder than when you're on a road team.
I mean, I get that what you said was it's like a weakness of yours, but actually, it's also the strengths, weaknesses, two sides of the same coin, etc. So, but the question is, when did that your competitive drive, that willingness to suffer, um, at some point they reach their productive limits. And so I'm curious, like what you notice about yourself, and it may not be physical, it may be some mental stuff that you that you might kind of notice that you think, right, if I look out for that next time.
I I realized I realized on the bike like in Oregon, I'm not sure if that's actually where I had the first kind of idea the virus was coming in because it kind of the timeline does add in, but I just couldn't suffer in Oregon. Like I was in the race and it's like I didn't want to hurt. Like I wanted to ride, but I really didn't want to hurt. So that's quite a big key. I think that starts to happen when you're feeling burnt out, kind of the psychological not wanting to suffer. Um, but for me, it's just like all the other stuff because like I have what effectively two jobs alongside racing,
Yeah.
and it's when my motivation or my brain goes for doing my writing work. Like if I can't just sit down and write, then that's usually a pretty good sign I'm tired. Like if my brain can't focus on proper
Yeah.
work for too long.
Yeah.
Because racing, it's like you can kid yourself through, like take a bit of caffeine, take whatever, and you can kid yourself through racing to a degree. But when you're just sitting like at this table, tip tapping away, it's usually a pretty good realization that I'm dead. But it's even just like being at home. Like before I'm home now, I think I've had 1 week at home between March and August.
Yeah.
So it's just not sustainable. Like even I haven't trained, I haven't chilled out. I've always been on the go. So yeah, there's a lot of things. And I've overestimated how important, oh sorry, underestimated how important just being at home is.
Yeah. It's definitely making me think of some things. Like irritability would be one of my signs. Like when I get irritable, that's a sign for me that I'm just not getting enough rest. And I like what you said about the work, sitting down and writing. I imagine that's something that you would normally enjoy, kind of look forward to. But when there starts to be some kind of challenge around it, oh, I don't know if I can do that. Like I don't want to say dread working because I generally don't think you and I like ever dread working, but I think people who are working, more conventionally, there might be that sort of Sunday night feeling of, oh man, I dread going to work in the morning. That's probably a sign of burnout, just not getting enough time.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think you and I are very similar in kind of our manner as well. I know we are because of our spotlights and just how we both think. And we're both very much like do. Like ideas are great, but how can we do them? Whereas when I kind of lose some of that, or when I get tired, like both the ideas stop coming
Yeah.
and the do definitely stops coming. It's like, oh, it doesn't matter. Like I'll do
Yeah.
that at some other point. And while there was an underlying, like I still had stuff to do. I still had a whole race team to run. I still had to get myself places. Everything was just slower, and there was definitely emails and messages, which was just like they'd get replied to. But instead of being like 3 to 5 hours, it'd be 3 to 5 days, or in
Yeah.
certain cases, probably 3 to 5 weeks, unfortunately. So it's one of those. Yeah, I've just overexerted myself, and the worst is everyone told me,
Yeah.
and I what do they know? Like I ignore them because I know best, obviously. I know I've got a whole lot of I told you so coming my way. Like or from people I'm pretty close to as well. Like Maggie, she was like, and she was saying, you're gonna be absolutely dead after your second US block. I was like, no, don't be stupid, I'll be fine. I'm going to great places. And then we got back, let's say last week, and she's like, I told you, you're doing too much. Like you need to learn to chill out and you need to learn to take less on. So
Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest lessons. Stop trying to juggle a million balls. And yeah, well, that is the main lesson.
I love that you mentioned your spotlight profile, which I had a look at
Oh, here we go.
yesterday when I was so there's and you may or may not remember, but there's a section in there which is titled Energizers. And the idea behind the Energizers section is just to help people recognize that we invest our energy generally by sort of adapting and fitting in to different contexts, working with different people. And that's great. Yeah, that's hopefully what we get really skillful at. But it does take energy. In addition to just the energy in your world of traveling and competing. And so the energizer section, it sort of suggests some stuff that you might want to consider to recharge or potentially expand your base of energy. So actually you're building a bit more into your capacity for next time. And I don't know if you've looked at those, but I'm just looking at them now.
What are they? Let's hear a couple of the bullet
Yeah.
points.
Like taking time today to fully prepare for whatever tomorrow might bring. That would definitely not be speaking to your kind of optimistic mindset. Will be, yeah, tomorrow will work itself out. Everything will be fine. But actually stepping into like a slightly more prudent and thinking, right, let's just make a plan just in case some stuff does go wrong. That might just making time to relax, identifying strategies to help you kind of emotionally wind down. I made a couple of notes, like simple solutions that I might be thinking about will be in your world. Just set some boundaries, and that might mean thinking that next season, like there will be a limited number of race days, and that boundary can't be crossed. Prioritizing belonging, connection, like traveling, going from race to race, you're away from home. And as you said at the beginning, that just being able to chill. Actually, it's probably not about place, it's probably more about the people that you feel really comfortable and connected with. And so just sort of thinking about prioritizing that. And then possibly having a set of non-negotiables. Like there will be some stuff that is like, no, that never gets compromised. And there might be some strategies that just help that emotional clock to slow down to give you time
Yeah,
to recharge. Well, what stuff are you thinking about?
it's funny because at the minute it's very much doing nothing.
Yeah.
Because I always feel guilty when I do nothing, but I'm purposely trying to do nothing. Because I was speaking to the doc and he's like, the only way you're gonna get better is by resting and switching off, which is very hard to do. Especially when I'm not training, I've got like the whole day. Like we were saying earlier this week, like I've cleaned my whole house. It sounds stupid, but like my bike room is now perfection and stuff like that, which I don't really see as work. But it just needs to like just taking my foot off the gas and chilling out, which so I'm gonna try and go to the beach this week, stuff
Yeah.
like that, which I hate to do because I need to like be at my laptop or get something done ready for because like 2025 starting soon. So like I need to start planning. But yeah, learning to be better is I'm getting there. I'll never be great at it, I don't think.
I'm just so like your spotlight is weirdly accurate. So one of the things to recharge, it says consider tidying your work area and getting rid of like which without any nudging, you like somehow you felt you needed to do that. That would be something that help you recharge, to expand that sort of base of energy. And again, I'm reading quote, slow down and reconnect with nature and the environment, unquote. So like,
I promise I didn't read this before.
it's like, yeah, I'm not very good at going to the beach, but it will really help you. And something else that you could combine with sitting on the beach, just take some time to review the successes this year, because it's not
Yeah,
something you would normally do, but it will definitely help you to. It's like rebuilding that connection between your values, and your values are around, competing and performing to your sort of potential. And if activity becomes like, if there's a lack of alignment, then that's when you're going to fall prey to that never enough syndrome. So taking time to review the successes connects into like, well, like the activities I've undertaken, they were aligned to my values. That's really positive. There might be
it,
some things that you thought, you know what, maybe they weren't that aligned, and you've got the opportunity to just tweak some stuff. But
it's
yeah,
interesting because everyone's saying to me at the minute is like, "Oh, you're back. How long are you in town for?" Is the first question everyone says. Like, when are you next going to the US or to the UK?
yeah,
And everyone's like, "Oh, you've had such a good year." Whereas I'm just frustrated I'm not riding. So I think it's like, I mean, you're always your own worst critic, aren't you? But it's funny the differing perspectives. Everyone else is like, "Oh, you're back.
yeah,
Time to chill." And I'm like, "Why can't I race? Like, why can't I train?" But I'm also like a realist. Like, my numbers are so far down at the minute from what they should be. So it's like, yeah,
yeah. Time
it's
to,
like, yeah, like even if I trained, I'd be so bad. And there's the only worst thing than not racing is racing bad,
yeah,
because then you're just not in the race. It's like, why would I fly to like the race in Sweden I was due to do? Why would I fly to Sweden to just be crap? There's no point going. So it's stuff like that, which last year I would and I did fly to Sweden anyway. Like Poland again, great example. I was burnt out of Poland and I was like, "Oh, I'll be fine." And I got dropped like 15 minutes in. So like it's really miserable when you're out the back of a race.
yeah. Well,
So
you're not recovering physically, like you're actually damaging yourself psychologically. Right?
exactly.
Like it's yeah. Cool. Well, yeah. I hope people get something out of that, because, as I said, I don't think it's just sort of elite athletes that suffer from burn. Well, clearly it's not. Um, I think it's really relatable, and definitely. So I've had a mental 6 weeks and got back to Malaysia at the weekend, and I was physically exhausted before I got on that plane, and it was, I was getting irritable, and that's a real good nudge for me. It's like I need to slow down. I need a bit of downtime. Weirdly, I was getting the same question. I was telling people, oh, yeah, I'm flying off to Malaysia on Saturday. Right, when are you back? I was like, actually, I don't know. And they're like, what? Which is a real good feedback for me.
Yeah. Me and Maggie were saying just this morning, walking to the coffee shop, it's like we don't know when we're going next. It's like it's unknown. Like we've got multiple times. Like I don't know, like 45 minutes ago, I was thinking, where am I this weekend? Like, what's going on? I was like, oh, no, like, that's amazing.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I think it's good doing as much as I do and like a crazy calendar and it's fun.
yeah,
But there's a point in the year you've got to like, oh, probably a point before the year, you've got to go, right, let's be realistic, chill out at some points. Don't try and do everything at once because that's my biggest issue. There's so much fun stuff to do. I try
yeah,
to do everything. It's
yeah,
like, oh, why not do this? Why not do that? Why not fly to Canada, fly to the US, then fly back to Canada in 2 weeks? Like, there's fun races. But yeah, I need to learn that like my career is going to be long, and I have multiple years to do multiple races. So
yeah.
yeah, it's hard though. I just love racing.
100%. Yeah, it's like optimizing that strength of yours. but the context does change as the season wears on, and you know, what was a strength at the beginning of the season starts to become a little bit overplayed. And I love that, you know, I love the idea that like competitive drive and willingness to suffer either on the bike or with a crazy schedule. It's the same mentality, right? It's like you're prepared to put yourself somewhere that, like most people, wouldn't go. And at some point, they will reach those two great strengths will reach their productive limit and they'll start to be overplayed.
But do you remember back in March we had a call and I was like, I need to race more. I was like, I'm so good right now. I just need to do everything. And I added Sea Otter in, which was fine. But I was looking at doing another block, I think starting next week or maybe starting this week in the US. I was like, I need to do it. I'm so good. Like it's such a waste of form and talent if I don't. And God, I'm so happy that you guys are like, chill, Joe. Like you're doing a lot already. Just because you've got one weekend in the year without a race doesn't mean there has to be one there. So it's funny the difference in what 4 or 5 months, but yeah.
Like how are you going to action this next year? Like it's a great conversation, great reflections. Like what's the one thing that you're writing down at the top of a notebook so that when you plan schedule next year, like how are you going to keep on the right side of that performance curve?
It's 25 race days, without doubt. It's actually funny enough written in a notebook which I bought at the airport the other day. Page 1, 25 race days. I've got to drop something as well. I don't know what yet, but something's got to go if I want to perform at the level I can. I've got to drop something else. Whether that's drop a bit of work. Yeah, it's drop a bit of work. I've got to drop something, and that's kind of what I'm figuring out at the minute. Because it's just unsustainable to work effectively 3.5 days a week and race as much as I do at the level I do. So something's got to go, and yeah, it's just I mean, all the work I do, I enjoy. So I've got to figure out what that is. But 25 race days is the headline, no more.
That sounds like a non-negotiable. 25 race days. Maybe
Exactly.
on another call we'll explore some ideas to generate options around like what to drop and what not to drop. But yeah, this is a great chat, Joe, and I've really enjoyed our race catch-ups in the past. But I think this is kind of a different vibe, and I think people that are following you are going to get something else out of it. It's like managing that sort of managing our performances applies in so many different walks of life. And thanks for your insights.
It's so easy when everything's going well and I'm winning. Like the good old days of just turning up and winning rattlesnake for like take the mic or turning up to Redlands and riding like an arrogant so and so. Like they're the good days, but yeah, you can't do that for 12 months a year.
No.
So take the bad days for the good, I suppose.
Yeah. Awesome, mate. Listen, go and chill at the coffee shop. Don't rush back too soon. And we'll have a chat very soon.
Cheers, Nick. Thank you.
Oof.
Mega.